Je reconnais le député de Oromocto-Lincoln.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it gives me a great pleasure to support our leader, the member for Quispam-Sis, who has been relentless on promoting the need for an excellent education system and to dig down into the details of results and ensure that we all do better. I've learned a lot from the former Minister of Finance and continue to learn, and that's what I hope all of humanity can do in their respective positions as we all grow. And as they said, as people have said before, that when we stop learning, then we might as well be dead. And so that's where we have to continue to keep learning and be open and understand each other's positions. And certainly, as former Minister of Education, I was very proud to hold that position. I think that it's a very important position. In fact, I considered it the most important position of being in government. Very honored to be in that position, to learn. I've had such a bright opportunity, such a gift was given to me to be the Minister of Education. A big part of that gift was to learn better what New Brunswick is made of, to learn about our history as a province, to learn about the giftedness of having 2 official bilingual languages, as well to have a system that respects minorities in our province, and so that we can work to build up each of our communities in New Brunswick. And no better place to learn that than in the department or in our classrooms of education. But in addition, when we have disagreements, misunderstandings, no better place to learn that than in our classrooms as well, to learn about how to express those differences and also then to learn about how to disagree reasonably and to make your points and to understand. And so our education system has been built on those values and building character and expressing opportunities for the future of our province. We are an inclusive province. We have an inclusive education system. I was very proud as well that a number of the initiatives that this current government continued with that the previous government started. And one thing that the Leader of the Official Opposition has instilled in all of us is that there are some good things that every government puts in place, and there are some not so good things. And we have to learn what those not so good things have been, and we have to correct them for the future. We also have to continue to build on the good things that have happened. And so every government comes in with the intentions to make things better. However, how those things are done can be debated. And it was unfortunate today that the current Minister of Education and the Premier today started again to point at the former Minister of Finance on this. And we all can go back through decisions that were made and the results of those decisions, and could those decisions have been made differently. We could go back to this government in the last 2 years regarding their record with education. So I don't think any of us have the capital to, or the market share of perfection, including this government and including the previous governments. And I'm first to say that not everything was perfect when I was Minister of Education, but one thing that hadn't changed was my desire to make things better for our students and to make things better through our classrooms for our province. And that's, I hope, every single individual in this legislature believes in doing. And one thing I was pleased about was this new 10-year plan. And when it was released, I talked publicly. And my response to this 10-year plan was that the framework was there. The framework was part of a nonpartisan approach that the opposition participated in. And I also appreciated that there was not a prescriptive list of to-dos. Previous plans, like the previous Liberal plan, when Kids Come First, had 200 items that were forced upon schools. The big complaint was that schools wanted this flexibility. And at the same time, they wanted to be measured and be held accountable for overall outcomes. I support the government, the current government, in that approach. And I said that the day that the 10-year plan was released. However, in addition to the positives around this plan. I also feel that the way the plan was developed was very good and positive, around nonpartisan, involving teachers, involving experts, involving parents, people from political backgrounds, and that was good. Then the 10-year plan comes up and it goes back into the hands of the Premier and the Minister and doesn't receive an implementation process made up of those same nonpartisan experts. And that's what's missing, is the implementation of the 10-year plan that involves these same stakeholders that were involved with developing the plan. That part of the implementation needs to as well help guide the part of the process needs to help guide the implementation made up of the experts and parents and real teachers in the classroom, and parents and the political parties that are involved can be in a forum for this implementation, and that is missing. And when that's missing, we see the decision like changing the early entry point to French immersion yet again. And so there, as soon as the 10-year plan was released, not much after that, the Premier made the political announcement that the change to early French immersion would take place. And I can appreciate the fact that it was a political platform commitment, and I feel very strongly as well that if you make a platform commitment and you tell people what you're going to do, then you need to do what you've told people you will do. And so I feel very strongly about that. And there were times when I was in government that would be pushing for that exact same thing. In this case, you're getting the teachers and the opposition asking you, giving you permission to break that promise and to keep your other promise around making evidence-based decisions. And there are a great number of concerns around this change of the early French immersion entry point. And yes, as Minister, I helped initiate, as part of our government, the review around early French immersion entry point. And yes, that report came back, and yes, it recommended a grade 1 entry point. However, when you read the report, which I did at the time and our government considered, there are a number of stipulations and conditions that were required in order to put grade 1 entry point in place. And those areas that were needed to be improved upon was teacher training, teacher language proficiency, and support for struggling students. And at the time and currently, the teachers have said, do not change the entry point until you have this figured out and until we have a chance to at least continue to review the current change at grade 3. And there have been a number of positives with the current grade 3 change, including the number of students that have enrolled in French immersion. Just last year, there were 700 more students that entered into the grade 3 French immersion program than had been in place even the year before. So the numbers of students that were entering into French immersion continue to increase, even while the total enrollment of our school system has decreased. So that has to tell us something very positive. However, there are a number of things in the report that we're concerned are not being considered or being implemented as part of this change. Not only is it a political promise, but at the same time, the government has not been able to tell us how many teachers will be transferred from the English program to the French program, how they will recruit these teachers. Currently, there are teachers hired in our school system in the French immersion program that are non-teachers. They have the French capability, but they're not teachers. And the problem with that, obviously, is to not have the full understanding of the pedagogy and the understanding of how to teach subject matter in the second language. It is a science and a skill that needs specific training. There are a number of complex reasons why this change is a problem, yet again. And people and teachers and parents have told us that the disruption that this will cause, as well as the fear that the resources will not be provided. And my two daughters both entered grade 3 French immersion. We personally appreciated having grade 1 and grade 2 to get all of our feet under ourselves, including, most importantly, our daughters. Go into grade 3, have a better understanding of a foundation in English, and then be successful in the second language. When you're going to enter your children into grade 1, there is an immense amount of pressure on the parents and on the students. This is an enormous decision. If you choose not to go into French immersion at grade 1, this was the complaint, that in the system you might be considered a failure. because you didn't go into grade 1 French immersion. Okay, so what if you choose to go into grade 1? A big problem with the French immersion system is not enough support for struggling students. Not only is that a problem in the French immersion program, it's a problem in the Anglophone, the English core program. This is a key recommendation that our previous government had acknowledged, that class composition needed to be supported. But when you're in the French immersion program, the 2012 report specifically said that there is absolutely no additional support for students that struggle in French immersion. So what happens is when you're struggling, you get kicked out of the French immersion program, not in such harsh words, but there's a family discussion and a teacher discussion, and it's probably best to move back over to the English program. The impact that that has on that child is enormous. Not only if you, at grade 1, if you don't put your children into French immersion, there's a feeling of failure, but when you start French immersion and then have to drop out, that feeling of failure is even worse. And so there are a significant number of concerns, and that's why when you can get a foundation under you in grade 1 and grade 2 and be ready for grade 3 French immersion and feel comfortable about the support that's in place, understanding what your learning style is like, then those numbers have increased. And I can see why those numbers have increased. In addition to that, the system has been responding to providing more support for the complexities and the diversity that's in our classrooms. Teachers' associations have been clear over a number of years that they support inclusive, diverse classrooms, not only because it's the right thing to do to include all children, but it's pedagogically the right thing to do. The research will say that students learn best in diverse classrooms, and to make those classrooms as diverse as possible. When that is not possible, then the classroom composition gets off kilter and tilted to a way that's unmanageable. The French immersion program, without proper support, adds to that streaming effect. So there's a great number of issues within the system that everyone's trying to meet, and the teachers are saying, please stop tinkering and changing and maneuvering this French immersion entry point. It's a significant change that will last not only 1 year. This entry point change lasts at a minimum of 12 years. When you start a student in grade 1 entry, you have to continue supporting that student throughout. And that's why we now currently have 5 French immersion streams, 5 education streams in the Anglophone system alone. You've got, at grade 6, if you take just grade 6, you've got students that had entered at, now they're, let's say grade 8. If you take grade 8, you've got students that entered the old grade 1 program that are in grade 8. You've got students that entered the current grade 3 program that are in grade 8. You've got students that enter the grade 6 program that are in grade 8. And you've got the core regular program students that are in grade 8. You've got 4 to 5 now, and now the 5th program will be when you switch back to grade 1. You've got 5 programs you'll have to support, 5 different textbooks, 5 different programs, 5 different teacher trainings, all in one Anglophone system. This is a very difficult system to manage and to resource. And I didn't fully appreciate that, obviously, until I became minister and could understand why switching your entry point is not just a matter of making a political statement. In fact, it has been for too long. That's why teachers have said, keep stability, understand what this change will mean, let's look at what this current change has done, and let's continue to work together to implement a 10-year plan. That's some background around what I've learned, and I think it's important to share that type of information because, because that's just a snippet of what I've been able to see, and even then there's a lot more complexities that the teachers in the classroom could tell us all much more about. And so when the government as well says that there was no 10-year plan by the previous government, again, there was a plan, 13 and 16. And when they say that they've invested more than any other government, that takes place every single year. The budget continues to go up. So what we have to focus on are the results. We have to focus on putting down politics, to work together, to understand that there's been good things, there's been not so good things. We all have a lot of blame to share. We all have a lot of celebration. One thing I've learned is what we have in common to keep building on is our desire to make a difference for our children. The opposition's ready. We want to continue to build that, and we ask the government to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.